Hey guys, it's Kate, and I hope you're having a fabulous day today. I'm back with another watercolor. I broke out the Mozart Kohlrabi palette because I haven't been playing with that in a while. And I was playing around with my water spray. And if you have watched very many of my videos, I tend to use three different bottles. I have a little 2-ounce spritzer that kind of sprays like, I don't know, one of those spritzy hairspray ones. And I have a mister. And then I have another spray bottle that's a lot like the kind you use for cleaning products, like window cleaner or something. And that one I really like to use sometimes because it disperses a little bit thicker drop and it can make some really nice textures with watercolor. And so I was just playing here with some trees. And normally I use that spray and make some sort of abstract something or other, just some backgrounds. But I wanted to kind of paint some loose trees using that same technique. And I really loved how it turned out in this. So I wanted to share it with you in case you wanted to use a similar idea to paint some trees of your own. Now, these are still pretty abstract. They're very, very loose. But I really love how they look because what you can kind of do is put in your basic shapes, drop in your color, and as you can see, I'm working with a very wet brush and I'm dipping it into the color. I'm going into the pan here, but you can also, go into a mixing well if you're mixing colors or just so long as you have a good amount of paint in your brush, because when you dip it and touch it into the water, it's going to spread through those droplets. And those droplets are some of that nice thick spray from that squirt bottle. So I went in and I did some Payne's gray and a little bit of a brighter blue for the background trees. And I'm just dotting my brush around and letting the water kind of take the color off my brush. And in the foreground area, I'm using more of the greens and yellows. I wanted to also give the illusion of maybe some sun shining through that center area. So I added some yellow. And I also dotted it into a couple of other spots on the painting too, just so that it's not only in one place, almost like there could be some sun shining through a couple of different spots. And then I'm even adding just a touch of orange in the bottom just to brighten it up even more. Now, with watercolor, as you know, it'll dry lighter than when you put it down. And so you can see here, it does fade a bit. Now, at this point, I decided to go in for the details, but you could respray and add a second layer of color. And that'll work really well too, as long as it doesn't lift too much of your previous layer. So that's something to test depending on the paper that you're working with, because some paper holds paint better than others. And if you're using different types of paint, like a more dye-based paint might have better sticking power, but just kind of test it out and see what reactions you get from your paper and paints. But for this one, I just opted to go with adding some detail. And so I grabbed my rigger brush and I'm just putting in some simple little branches and adding some trunks. And so I really love the combination look of this. So you have that sort of almost foggy looking background and trees, and it's very wispy. And then you also get those hard line details from what you paint in later, and then all of a sudden you have an image jumping out at you. And I love when that happens. I love to also kind of put down the blobs of color and do cloud gazing and stuff. But for this one, I dipped into my brown, and I think that is the burnt umber, I believe. And so I'm adding in those details for the trees, some simple branches, and I'm going to add some more plants to the bottom just to kind of balance it out a little bit. So we have a nice little base down there, and so now I'm kind of going in with my brush and adding in some little hints of twigs or grasses and different things like that. And I'm starting with the burnt umber, and I'm going to move over to green and add some of that too to get some different colors in there. And I'm also going to deepen some of the shadows at the bottom so that it would kind of be like you're under the trees where the sun can't reach, and it's going to be a little bit darker. And so right now I'm just kind of experimenting with the color, seeing where I want to place objects, mostly the trunks and the branches at this point. But I'm just kind of going back and forth and tweaking it in little ways. And it's a great way if you're not, this was an experiment, so I just wanted to go slow and add a little bit at a time and then kind of pause for a second and take a look at it and see if I want to do more. And so I added a couple more tree trunks, and I'm adding some sort of mounds, almost like it could be rocks or maybe just, I don't know, some kind of little shrub or something. It's all a mystery, but your eye will kind of create a picture of what's there. And I didn't want to use just the brown, so I'm also adding in some Payne's gray. And if you're doing shadow in any of your paintings, Payne's gray is kind of a great place to start. You can also mix the complementary color. So if you're working with red and you want to make a shadowy red, you might add some green to that to make your shadow. But for here, I did the Payne's gray and the burnt umber, and I really liked how that looked, and it already matched the color palette that I used in the painting. So I'm just kind of going through and adding little tiny details here and there. And for those grasses, I'm letting some of those kind of come out of the original layer. So it's almost like the painting continues on. And I really like how that looks. And then I'm adding some other little hints of leaves and shrubs and different things. And the details really what kind of pulls it together. And they're just simple details, little marks on the page, but this little experiment turned out to be a lot of fun, and I really like the finished painting. And it's so easy to do if you're using water the right way. So it's not going to work as well if you use a spritzer or a mister, but if you have a squirt bottle that just distributes some bigger water droplets and doesn't give you the full page coverage, it almost has this really nice little fractal or almost even a spider webbing effect sometimes, depending on how the water lands. And you can always spray a little bit more, and it stays wet quite a while too, because you have a bigger coat of water. But it's a really nice thing to experiment with. So I hope you give this a try yourself with some squirt bottles you have lying around. But now I'm finishing this up and adding some of that deeper Payne's gray underneath the tree trunks and just kind of helping them blend into the ground a little bit more, where it's not just sort of like these brown sticks sticking up out of the bottom of the painting. It looks a little bit more detailed, has a little bit more depth, and it's just something really easy to add. So I'm just kind of wiping off the back or the bits away from that yellow. I wanted to keep that center bright. And then my favorite part, removing the tape and doing the close-up. So this was a ton of fun. It does not take long to do. There's just a little bit of wait time with drying, but I really enjoyed doing this painting, and I hope you give it a try. Thanks so much for watching, and until next time, keep creating. Bye.